Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the next in our series of Insight Group webinars. This time on real-time customer engagement and supported by the team at Clarabridge. My name is Nick Johnson. I am the founder of the Insight Group and I'm your host for today's discussion. And over the next 45 minutes to an hour, we'll be discussing how to make customers happy through real-time customer engagement. We will cover building an agile team, monitoring customer feedback, best practice on different social channels, and measuring success. There are plenty of issues to cover, and fortunately we are joined by an exceptional lineup of expert speakers. So from eBay we have Victoria Miera, who is the leader of the global customer care team there. From Twitter we have Jeff Lesser, the head of the customer service initiative at the company, and from Clarabridge we have Susan Ganeshan, who is the Chief Marketing Officer. And thanks to all of those illustrious panelists for joining us. Now, before we do get started with today's discussion proper, a couple of quick notes for you. First, I would like to remind you that we are recording the webinar. All of you will receive a link to the hosted recording by the end of this week. And second, and no less important, myself, Susan, Jeff and Victoria are certainly not the only participants in today's conversation. We are looking for you to ask questions throughout. So please do so using the question function, which you should see at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. You can start asking questions now and I will remind you throughout to do so. And in the spirit of interactivity, we are going to be kicking the webinar off with a poll. And that poll should be appearing on your screen relatively shortly. Here we go. So the question for you to all answer is, how close is your business to real-time customer engagement right now? And this is designed to give our panelists a bit of a sense as to where the audience is, so they can start to sort of moderate and modify their comments for you. So are you already there? You're already able to deliver real-time customer engagement? Are you close? Are you within touching distance? Are you an awfully long way away? Or are you nowhere near? And right at the beginning. So if you could focus on getting your votes in now, I will give you 5 more seconds to respond. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we will close the poll right now. And here are our results. So a relatively even split, which is nice. So 27% of you feel you're already able to deliver real-time customer engagement, and I guess you were joining the webinar for optimization tips, which I'm sure you will get. 33% say you are getting there, you're close. 34% are rather a long way away, and for 7% of you, hopefully this webinar will be tremendously useful because there's, I'm sure, plenty for you to learn. So the first thing that I would like to do is actually go to our panelists and get a little bit of feedback from them as to how they see these results, whether they seem broadly similar to what they understand from the space as a whole. So Victoria, I'd like to go to you first. What do these results suggest to you?
No, these aren't surprising at all. I think depending on the variation in your business, there's a lot of customers or a lot of companies out there who have put in some really great practices that allow them to get real time. And then I think you have some businesses that have a bit more complexity and are maybe more on the larger side with a lot of volume coming in that makes it more difficult to get to that 10, 15-minute engagement time that they're looking for. So I think this pretty much sums up how I would view the social media space and how much variation can exist in it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Victoria. And Susan, do you have a point of view on these figures?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is good news and this is bad news, right? This is good news for Clarabridge because we do help organizations get too close to real-time customer engagement, and we've worked with 450 different businesses around the globe. Some of them, it's interesting because they'll start off with customer engagement with very broad goals. Say they would like to engage with customers who are mentioning them in social media in 8 hours or 10 hours. And then what they do is they begin to narrow this down towards getting to near real time, getting towards minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes kind of time spans. So I agree with Victoria. It's not surprising, and there's good news in here, but there's also the other good news is just the number of people that are on this line right now who are interested in real-time social engagement and social care with their customers.
Okay, thank you very much, Susan. And Jeff, to you finally, what's your view?
Yeah, not to take a more bleak view of this poll here, but 73% of the people on the line said that they're not doing real-time engagement. And from my perspective, that means that when someone's reaching out to get help from a business, they're not getting that help when they need it. I don't think that this is very surprising, though. In our customer care initiative here at Twitter, we've talked to a lot of businesses, and it seems clear that like the biggest businesses with the most ability to invest in customer service on Twitter are the ones who are the closest to real-time engagement. But it's likely that the attendees of this webinar aren't Fortune 500 companies. But I think the good news is being able to get to real-time customer service and customer engagement is a big differentiator because, like you can see, 73% of people aren't there. So kudos to everyone who cares about this, who's thinking about this, and who's tuned in today because there's a real opportunity to differentiate.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Jeff. That's really useful. So let's dive straight into the questions, and just an obligatory reminder to those of you that are listening, please do throw your own questions into the question box at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. So the first question from me is looking at building capabilities and building capacity for real-time customer engagement. So if you do want to get into a better position to deliver that level of engagement, what should your team look like? Who should be responsible for delivering that real-time engagement? How would you suggest companies can begin on the path to building more agile teams? And if they've started to do this, how would you suggest that they optimize those teams? And Jeff, I'd like to go to you first to get your feedback on that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think most of the businesses that we end up talking to have customer service on Twitter living in an organization that reports into like the operational side of things. So it's typically, the customer care team, and it's like a social piece of the customer care team that's handling customer service on Twitter. But what we see is that the businesses who are doing it the best, who are the most real-time and creating the experiences that are the most delightful and helpful for their customers, are typically the teams that have some element of a marketer consulting or helping out with that so that they're not operating in a silo. So if you look at companies like Spotify, though their customer care team and their like social marketing team are essentially combined under one leader, and they have a really engaging, visual, friendly, delightful experience that they create. There's other companies that have, their customer service organization wrapped up under operations completely. T-Mobile Help is a great example of that one. But they get consulting and help from the marketing team so that they can, create experiences that are really innovative and unique. So I think that the best teams are the ones that have a focus on the customer, which often happens through the customer care organization, but get some help from the marketing team.
Okay, I see. So there's a collaborative effort involved, I guess, but the unifying feature is that resolute focus on the customer. Susan, from your point of view and from looking at the various clients that Clarabridge has, who tends to do this best? What do their teams look like?
Yeah, well, I would agree that with Jeff that it's great to have a combination of skill sets in replying to people in this real-time manner. Here's what we see. When we work with airlines, they're going to get a variety of types of questions. So they're going to get questions that are general inquiry. Where is my gate? Is my flight on time? They're also going to get questions about reticketing. And there's a skill set that only certain people in that business have in order to reticket. They need access to certain systems, and they need the details and the skills in order to provide that reticketing capability. They can do that all via social means, interacting with that individual if they've got the skills. So Our advice always, and that's just for airlines, it's, you have the same thing for hotels or a product company where you put the question that's out there on social in front of the product experts. So in general, our advice is get the questions, get the customers' inquiries to the people who have the best skills to do something with it. It is actually quite easy to train people how to be engaging and inviting on social, as Jeff suggested, by using your marketing team as an expert, but giving them the skills to do the other part of the job, to really handle and resolve 100%, resolve that customer's issue, go to the people who already know how to do that, who have access to the systems to do it and have the skills to do it.
I see, I see. And just a brief follow-up, I guess, for you. So if you're bringing those people, the people with the access to the systems, and bringing them to social rather than bring the people that are au fait with social to the systems, as it were, what sort of general advice would you give people in terms of training those people up and making sure that they are going to be an asset on social interaction as opposed to a liability?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as training somebody on how to stand at your cash register in your New York City brick and mortar store and interface with thousands of people each day, right? So how would you train them? The same way you would train these people. Now you do have to realize, of course, social has a multiplier effect and can spread far and wide very quickly. But the point is, you trust these people daily to interact with sometimes thousands of individuals, and so the training that you're typically giving to people on what is your company's brand, what is your philosophy, what is your the customer experience you're going for. Are you going for whimsical, or are you going for serious? Are you going for supportive? Are you going for cheap, or inexpensive? Whatever your brand identity is, sticking with that brand identity is part of your training anyway. So continue that training into this social realm.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, thank you. And Victoria, to you finally, how is this organised at eBay, and what advice would you have for our listeners?
So really, just to echo some of the sentiments that were raised earlier, the network of resources is incredibly important. Having that partnership or that connection back to marketing and allowing teammates that connection to make the decisions that they need to make is really an important thing that we do. I would say also hiring the right people, so understanding that you need someone who can represent your brand. These are all things that we focus on. We spend a lot of time on onboarding and giving a little bit of flexibility and leeway to our agents as they get up to speed on how to interact in a public sphere. I think some find that it takes a bit more confidence, or it's a bit more nerve-wracking than they may have originally expected, so we make sure we give them plenty of time to develop those skills and get up to speed. And then I think another important thing is having defined parameters of authority. So we have policies in place that enable flexibility for our agents, and we really empower them to make decisions, to do the right thing for the customer, even if that sometimes means it's not what the black and white policy would say to do. But really helping them understand when to make judgment calls, and just giving them that empowerment to help them really support our customers the way that they need to.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And somewhat excitingly, we have had our first question come through, and this question has come through from Nirav Chef. And what Nirav wants to know, I guess, is about convincing the higher ups, the boards, and the CEO at your company that customer expectations or demands are changing regarding customer service and complaint resolution, I guess as a way to give you the leeway to make these various changes that one would recommend to your teams. So Jeff, if we go to you first, what advice would you have for Nirav and the rest of our listeners in terms of convincing the CEO that customer expectations are changing?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I like to use this one graph. I wish I could show it to you, and I wish I could pull it up right now, but it's from Mary Meeker's Internet Trends report, and basically what it shows is the generations. There's the 4 generations. There's millennials, baby boomers. The silent generation is the oldest one, and there's one other that I can't remember. And what it shows is their preference of channel that they would like to reach out to for customer support. And when you look at the 3 oldest generations, their number one preference is all phone. And when you look at the youngest generation, like millennial, is what they call it, the preference is split between social media and web chat at 24%. And I actually think that web chat's going to, be eaten by social just because of the availability of and the easy accessibility of social. So when you think about where the changing expectations are generationally, it's clear that social media and that sort of like instantaneous yet asynchronous resolution and customer service is what they're after. The other thing I'll say about expectations is there's a study, I think it's Aspects that does it, I could be wrong, but they talk about the changing expectation of a response time over time. And a while back, when customer service was first getting started on Twitter, it was about a 2-hour time when they were fine. That was their expectation of when they should receive a response in. And about 2 years ago, when we first started doing really investing in customer service on Twitter as an initiative, that was at an hour. And now, when we talk to people, the expectation from customers is 30 minutes, and the goal for brands is about 15 minutes. So it's clear that not only is the expectation changing across generations, but within the generations and the people that are using Twitter for customer service, their expectation of a response time is getting, much shorter. They expect a response much faster.
Okay, fantastic. That's really useful. And Jeff, if you could send me and send the team the graph that you're talking about, we can happily distribute this with the recording, so people can take a look at exactly what you mean if they can't find it via Google. And Victoria, I'd like to go to you next, because I remember that you said in your introductory remarks that you guys, I believe, were aiming for 10 to 15 minutes. So how did you justify that, I guess, to the board at eBay? Was it using charts like the one from Mary Meeker that Jeff mentioned?
So yeah, it's using basically any information that we can find. I have seen that information that Jeff has referenced before. It's really helpful because it kind of shapes the future of what you're going to do with your customer support organization. Well, 10 to 15 minutes may be the goal. We may not be there entirely today, but we understand that the faster the response, the better it is for the customer. The less likely they are to come back, the fewer contacts you're going to regenerate. And so we combine all that together. I think we use the success that we see in our pages, what type of sentiment or how we're feeling about the tone of our pages overall when we are out there with a lower response time versus maybe in difficult, busy seasons when it gets a little bit higher. And that's what we kind of put together to make the business case to our leadership team that this is something that needs a big focus and a lot of investment moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And Susan, on your side, how have you seen brands be successful in convincing the board?
Yeah, so I love what Jeff highlighted just now as well. And there's another study from a group called TSIA. And TSIA stands for the Technology Services Industry Association. So they really appeal more to technology companies like an eBay or a Dell or Microsoft, what have you, but they put out some statistics that I think can apply to everybody. And so they also have a report very similar to Mary Meeker's that breaks out, and says that millennials, by the way, at a 75 to 30% leaning, prefer not to have a phone conversation with someone. We've also done studies asking people how often do you call your support center. And millennials, the majority of millennials have not placed a call into any customer service organization for any of the products they use within the last year. So they're somehow finding their way through their support, they're just not calling. In a fun little survey that Desk.com did, just to give you a few more data points to go back to your management team with, their survey said that millennials will ardently avoid customer service. In fact, 34% of them would rather have their teeth cleaned, 32% would rather go shopping on Christmas Eve, and 26% would rather go to the DMV. So in other words, they're just not going to call you, right? They're going to get to you and try to get support from you in alternative ways, whether that's an app or social or your community or their friends. And so you know, because they're not calling you, you have no choice but to offer social customer care. Now, let's say you still need to make that business case. I do have some other numbers for the folks on the line. TSIA, again, says that in the technology world, it can cost as much as $510 to answer a customer support question over the phone, and as little as $4 to do it via social. So 510 versus 4. Now you're probably thinking, well, my call center, each call into my call center is not $510. So there's other studies out there that have shown that if your cost into your call center is $6, you can offer that same support via social for $1, and that's through a group called NM Insight. So anyway, there's tons and tons of studies out there, and at some point you'll want to say, not only do we have to do this because this is the preferred channel for people, but also it saves us money. Every call I can avoid in my call center, and if I can handle that question via social, I can save anywhere from $5 to, you know, $500, somewhere in that range. And guess what? The cost of my call center is one of the biggest cost centers in any business. So let's get that down. Let's drive that down. And by the way, most of the solutions out there that help you do social customer care are actually really, really affordable.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I can certainly see that an argument to cut costs like that is always going to find a willing ear at the board level. So I want to move on to sort of the second big question for our discussion today. And what I'm going to try and do is merge it with one of the questions that has come in from Kimberly O'Donovan. So Kimberly is asking about, to achieve a 10 to 15 minute response time, what channels are our panelists using or recommending using to manage contacts? Is it all through social? Do you also manage contacts through email, phone, and chat? And what do you find is the most cost-effective and efficient way to manage? So I guess the question is kind of around triage, which is where I was going. So with so much feedback and with so much comment and with so many questions coming in over social channels, how should brands go about monitoring and then triaging customer feedback to ensure the right message gets seen by the right team member? So there are a few different things to go into there, but fundamentally what we're looking at is how do you actually manage the process of responding? So first, I'm going to go to Victoria for that. So forgive me, Victoria, there was rather a lot of things to consider there, but what's your point of view?
So I would say for any large volume business like eBay, a robust social engagement tool is going to be key. Just as an example for what we do within our business, we not only contend with the total conversations that are coming in directly talking to eBay, but we have customers who are tagging us to promote their own listings in their own business. So it generates quite a bit of social conversation that would be nearly impossible for us to navigate without a tool that could help us through some sort of automation. So we automate based on keyword, a lot of things that don't require our attention that we can push off to the side. We can then review that data later if there's any kind of opportunity for us to engage in some meaningful way on some of those posts. And then we use the same type of prioritization based on influencers, but based on keyword. If we feel like there's something in there that is going to be more of a high priority CS issue that requires our attention, we can get to it first. So those are ways that we kind of make sure that we're focusing specifically on what it is that we want to focus on. The other parts of the question relating to how this filters in with our overall customer support organization, it's a little bit more complicated. There are opportunities for you to have a full CRM integration with your social response tool and into whatever response solution you're using for your other lines of business. We don't have that total connection today, so it comes up with some need for a workaround and how we identify the customers in social and identify them within our normal channels as well. User IDs on eBay don't necessarily correlate with your social media handles, so you have to get creative and find some different workarounds to really tackle a lot of those issues that might come up if you don't have that connection. And did I miss any other part of the question?
No, I think that was remarkably comprehensive, given the sheer number of things I threw at you there. So thank you very much. And Susan, I'm going to go to you next. What's your point of view on this?
Yeah, so I completely agree, and I want to just go one level deeper on gathering a tool that helps you do this. Now, I'm going to sound really biased, and I apologize for that in advance, but Clarabridge started as a text analytics engine, and you simply cannot route this traffic and understand priorities and understand what the customer is saying and how to respond quickly, or if at all, unless you have text analytics and a really robust industry-specific text analytics tool backing your technology. So let me give you an example. If I wrote a post on Twitter and I said, I just got Black Ops 2 and that game has sick graphics, that would be positive. And you might just want to tweet back at that person saying, so glad you love the sick graphics and, game on, right? Now, if I go on Twitter and I just visited a restaurant and I said, that chicken made me sick, that's actually negative. And in that context, sick has a priority that I need to put not just into my call center and my contact center, but back to the possible restaurant where that happened. So now I want to geolocate that Twitter, that person via Twitter. I want to understand, which of my restaurants is closest to that person, and could I already alert my chef that there's a possibility that the chicken is bad in that restaurant, while at the same time I'm getting back to that customer. So I need closed loop handling. I need really great text analytics. And guess what? The first thing you need is the ability to listen everywhere. So if your tools aren't able to grab comprehensively everything that's being mentioned about you, or guess what? Most people don't go to social media and mention your company name. They only mention your product names, or sometimes even nicknames for your product names. You have to be able to get at a tool that gathers everything comprehensively. So walking back through that, gather everything comprehensively, understand the text that the customers are writing about you, and even pictures that they might post on, say Instagram or other platforms that are more picture-oriented, and then get it to the route it and get it to the right people so that you can close the loop very, very quickly, sometimes preventing disasters for others in your business.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. And Jeff, finally for you, any additional points that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I think that Victoria and Susan both have really great viewpoints on, the value and the tactics of triaging. I don't think I have a whole lot to add there, but I do think that I can kind of high level and sort of philosophically talk about some things that you might be able to do to triage that can provide value to both your customers and to you. So we recently did a study that measured the willingness to pay for people who get customer service on Twitter. And there was a couple of surprising things that we found from that study. And one of the more surprising things was that people who tweet at you with a negative sentiment are 3 times more likely to have a higher willingness to pay than those who tweeted at you with a positive tone. So a lot of people are scared of responding to and prioritizing and triaging for the negative comments that come at their business on Twitter, but those are really the high-value opportunities that the business has. And it's not just a high-value opportunity for the business to make more money. Willingness to pay is really a corollary to the customer satisfaction. If they're satisfied, they're going to be willing to spend more with you. So those are the opportunities that you have to take someone from a detractor to a promoter and really increase the value for both them and for your business. The other surprising thing that we found in that study was that the faster that you can respond, the higher the willingness to pay is. So again, because that's a corollary to satisfaction, what we're saying is the faster you can respond, the more satisfied your customers are going to be with that interaction. And I don't think that that's surprising at all. But if you can create a program that allows you to triage and respond to people more quickly because of that, that's a strategy that you should undertake.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Jeff. That's really useful. And just to call back to a previous comment, Jeff mentioned the Mary Meeker series of charts. He has kindly shared that with us, which we have just shared with everybody listening in the chat function. So there's a SlideShare link in there for you. I'd now like to move on to an additional audience question before we go to our next poll. And this question comes from Margaret Young. And Margaret is asking about sort of moving from sort of the sort of ad hoc way of using customer service real time and jumping in and responding to questions after this triaging process that we discussed, into a sort of more ongoing way of cultivating relationships with customers using those real-time tools and building that relationship. And Victoria, I'd just like to get your point of view on this. So how would you recommend that people sort of link all this up and build it into a broader relationship?
So I think for us at eBay, this is a big part of what we do. I mean, the core of our business is bringing people together, and so social media to us is kind of a natural fit because it's exactly what you do. You can connect people through your various social channels, particularly on Facebook. So I would say, you know, while we talk about fast and real-time engagement and getting there as quickly as you can, we have sacrificed some speed just to make sure that we've got our teammates engaging in a way that's meaningful and personalized. And provides the best experience for the customer. I think a fast response is only, you know, as good as the content that you can deliver, and if it's subpar, then it doesn't matter how fast if the customer's not getting the right resolution. This again goes back to our onboarding and a lot of the training we've received from our brand team on how best to represent the brand and how our agents can be bold and take those risks and engage in ways that are whimsical and kind of funny within brand guidelines and still offer, you know, top-notch customer service. So it's a priority focus for us, and I think we've seen a really great response from it. And the speed on top of that comes. And so I think this is one of the foundations that we try to put in place. As our teammates are getting up to speed, they learn this basic first, and then in time they get faster and faster, which contributes to the faster response.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Victoria. And to everybody listening, if you do have any further questions for us, please do throw them into that question function, and we will attempt to get to as many of them as we can. And on the subject of interactivity, we would like to move into our second poll now and get some feedback from you, our listeners. So our second poll, we're looking at the number of people that are involved in this at your company. So how many people staff your social care and your social engagement efforts? How many people are allocated the challenge of delivering this real-time response? So you have 4 choices. You can go for 2 or fewer than 2. You can go between 3 to 5. You can go between 6 and 15, and then you can go for 16 plus. So if you could all get your votes in now, and again, I will give you 5 additional seconds to complete that, and then I'll go to the panel for some comment. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we'll close the poll, and now we will get our results. So as we can see, for 40% of people, the most popular response is 2 or fewer people are responsible for doing this. So Susan, I'd like to go to you first. How does that surprise you?
Again, not surprising. It sounds like we've got a representative sample of people on this line from what we see out there. Let me give you an example that I think is relevant. So we work with Brussels Airlines. Brussels Airlines mostly flies out of the Brussels airport. And as you guys might remember, last spring there was a bomb attack in Brussels that really crippled that airline, since their hub and their only place that they originate planes from is that particular airport. They had 2 people on their social customer care desk, and that day they ramped to, I think the number was more than 40, and the way they did that is by, now keep in mind these people had not previously been trained. They put together a quick video. They showed people how to use the technology they're using, which is from Clarabridge, but they showed people how to use that technology very quickly, and they ramped that desk immediately. Now, so it's not surprising to me that people can, with the right technology, they can get away with 2 or fewer people replying. Now, what is surprising to me, and actually pleasantly surprising, is to see that there's a number of larger organizations out there that have 16 plus. And then, you know, people should ask, how do we maintain quality control? How do we maintain consistency with that many people? And again, it comes down to putting the trust in these people, giving them the tools they need, which could be, like in the case of Brussels Airlines, a video. In the case of other organizations that we've seen, it's a couple hours of training, and then ensuring that they're delivering on that brand message. So I think we can all learn from the Brussels Airlines example. They had so many individuals who were worried about their loved ones in that airport, or just others who were just curious, when will the airport reopen? And Brussels Airlines was, footing that traffic, whether it had to do with their particular flights or just the airport itself. They responded in kind as fast as possible, and we're really proud of the way they were able to stand up that organization so quickly.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Susan, and thanks for a great example. Jeff, over to you. How do these figures strike you?
Yeah, this also isn't very surprising to me. When you think about it, there are tens of millions of businesses just in the United States alone that are small businesses. Like having two or fewer people for a small and even medium-sized business, I think, is sufficient, depending on the amount of volume that you have coming in. To see that 20% of the people on the call have 16 or more people is a little bit surprising to me. That means that we have some of the bigger organizations, bigger businesses that are engaged and interested in being engaging in real time. So we often hear from companies, we get the question, how many people do I need? How do I determine when I need to staff up? And I think it depends on the business, and it's all consideration of volume and the complexity it takes to resolve issues. But I think that you can still be highly engaged in real time with two or fewer people, depending on the size of your business.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Jeff. And Victoria, finally over to you. How does this map with your experience at eBay?
Again, not at all surprising. So I think, over 4 years ago when we were first piloting and trying to launch a social customer care program, eBay, being the size that it is, started with two or fewer. We would have been in that initial bucket. And we did great. I think as you engage on the page, the expectations change. And the level of engagement from the community grows, so you then have more people coming in and wanting to have conversations, and that's when you have to start reevaluating your resources. I also totally agree with Jeff's comment about the complexity of your business and what it takes to resolve a customer care issue. That is key in determining what kind of resources you need. But these numbers at all don't surprise me. But 4 years ago we were in 2 or fewer, now we would be in the 16 plus. So it's good to start somewhere and then just evaluate your business goals and move forward.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. So there seems to be a relatively high level of dynamism, to be honest, in terms of how people can level up from one place to the next. I'd like to move the conversation on and start looking at engagement on different channels. So what we're trying to do here is look at the necessity of modifying the message and the form of your engagement depending on the channel you're using. Should one do something differently on Twitter versus Facebook versus Snapchat, etc., etc. Now, we are fortunate enough to have a representative from one of those channels with us, so I'm going to go to Jeff first. So, Jeff, what do the high performers do on Twitter? How would you suggest that our listeners should be using Twitter for real-time engagement and customer care?
Yeah, so I think there's sort of like three things or three parts of a model that we like to talk about, where businesses can consider how they can engage on Twitter. And I think the most popular, or the one that people think of as, engaging on Twitter, is being reactive. So someone tweets at you or sends you a direct message and asks you a question or states a need, and then you respond to them. And I think this is what tools like Clarabridge and our other ecosystem partners have created to solve the very apparent need of users. But there's two other parts of the model that we like to have businesses consider, because it makes the experience that users get much more robust and much more valuable. So the other part of it's being proactive. And what we mean by being proactive when it comes to engaging is maybe they didn't tweet at your brand at all. Maybe you're an airline to Susan's examples, and someone just states that they're going to go travel to Florida for a vacation. Maybe it's a wedding, right? And you could give them some tip on how to pack a suit so that it doesn't get wrinkles, or you can give them some sort of help, some sort of tip that will make their experience better. And so being proactive like that, reaching out when they might not have reached out to you, can help you create great experiences for more people, and that brand goodwill will come back, for your business in the future. The other thing that we like to think about is, can you be preemptive? Can you use Twitter to stop people from asking a question because you can provide them the answer that they need before they ask it? And one of the use cases that we like to talk about with this is, imagine you're a cable provider or a television service provider, and you know that your service is down. Rather than just wait for people to respond to you and then respond back to them and say, yeah, we know it's down, we're working our best to get it back up, which you should definitely do, you can just tweet out to all of your followers. You could even promote a tweet that says, hey, we know our service is down, we're doing everything we can to get it back up, so that if they go and they look at your Twitter account, or if they follow you and they're in their feed, they'll see that fact and they won't need to reach out. That saves your company time and agents resources, but it also solves the problem that they had so much faster than if they ever even had to ask the question in the first place. So I would encourage all businesses who are trying to engage in real time to think about how you can be reactive, proactive, and preemptive.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Jeff. That's really useful. And to the rest of the panel, I guess we'll look at changing up and modifying engagement depending on the various different channels that you may use. So Victoria, if we can go to you first, do you find that there is a different mode of engagement that one should use depending on whether you're on Twitter or various other social channels?
For our business, there is. I think one thing we look to first is customer expectations. So I think if we understand that customers on Twitter demand a faster response than maybe customers on Facebook do, one of the things you can do if you're not quite in real time yet is make sure you're prioritizing to try to meet your customers' needs as best you can. So Twitter, for instance, may be something you'd prioritize with a faster response than your Facebook pages. For eBay, we also have some specialized Facebook pages that exist that are targeted to certain segments of customers. One, most notably, is for some of our business sellers. This is a page that has a greater community feel to it. So not only are people coming in and asking questions or have customer service issues, but they want to have a conversation with other sellers and with members of the eBay staff as well. So this is one where I think your interaction with the customers is very important. We've built a rapport with our sellers on that page, and if we don't get back to them within minutes, they understand that their issue is still going to be resolved, and there's not necessarily an expectation of instantaneous resolution or response. So I think those are things that can help you go a long way if you're not quite in a position to be in real time yet. Just having that relationship with your customers and building that trust that even if the response isn't going to come as quickly as we all would like the response to come, it's going to be taken care of, and they trust that they're going to get good service.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Victoria. And Susan, finally for you, how would you recommend changing up and impacting one's engagement by the channel that one's using?
Yeah. So we suggest first prioritizing the channels where your customers are talking most to get started. If you're in that situation where you have one or two people, a couple of best practices we put out there. One is when the information that you need to exchange with that person should be private, educate that customer on how to take your message private on that channel. So for example, on Twitter you can DM or direct message. So a lot of people, a lot of individuals don't know how to do that. So make sure your reps know how to tell the customer what to do in order to get to that individual direct message on that channel. We do recommend keeping it on channel where the person started the conversation, if at all possible, to resolve it and not to pull it off channel. One of the best practices like 3-4 years ago was, okay, well, let them put a message on Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest, and then I'm going to tell them, oh, please call me, right? Well, why would you do that? Because you can actually save so much more money if you're not having them call you. And if you can at all handle it on that channel, then handle it there. Now, So again, move off channel as a last resort. And then work towards ways and use tools that help to keep the customer's information that needs to stay private. And, you know, there are tools, for example, that'll mask things like Social Security number, even if you're only asking for the last 4 digits of that Social Security number, so that as they're traveling over the internet, you're not revealing any private information. I did want to, though, go back to Jeff's comments, because I thought they were spot on about how to be reactive and proactive in his layer of 3. One of the things that came to mind as he was talking was a book by one of our favorite authors. His name is Jay Baer, and his last name is spelled B-A-E-R. And he wrote a book that you can find on Amazon. It's called Utility. Utility is a great look at how to be useful to your potential customers. So, you know, Jeff gave the example of, you know, just proactively replying to somebody that's going to be in the area. Jay actually gives a great example in his book about a hotel chain, one of the major large hotel chains who happens to operate in Florida near Disney properties but is not a Disney property. And what they will do when they see people talking about their upcoming trip to that area is they will reach out with their own Twitter handle, so which states their brand name, and say, hey, we've got advice for you on where to eat or what time of day to go to which park, and gives people that sort of insider tips around getting through Orlando, Florida. And you know, it's that kind of proactive, helpful, useful information that just puts your brand front and center with that business. So we love Jay Baer's book, and highly recommend people, especially if you're just getting started, go read his book on how to be useful to your customers. One other thing I wanted to mention really quickly is being proactive. So we work with a mobile provider in the UK called Tesco Mobile. Now, for those of you who aren't from the UK, Tesco is actually a grocery store and a chain of grocery stores that offer both convenience and larger stores throughout the UK, but they also offer a telco, you know, cellular provider, especially because they're distributed all across the UK and even remote parts of UK, so they might be the only telco provider in that area. They have, at last I remember them telling me, around 4 million subscribers, and what they do is using their technology, they proactively reach out to customers to let them know that support is available to them through social means. And so if I register for Tesco Mobile today, a task will be entered into a queue, and that will be delivered to one of the customer care representatives who, using social media, will reach out to that customer proactively to say, hey, how have your first few days on our cellular service been for you? How is your phone treating you? Is there anything I can do for you? And not only did Tesco Mobile receive an award in the UK for this, you know, really proactive way and innovative way to support their customers, but their customers are wowed. Their response is, hey, I had no idea that this is such an easy way to interact with you, and thank you for following up with me. You know, just that level of you know, happiness that they can provide their customers and making it so easy to get in touch with them has proven to be very, very helpful for that organization and their customers.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Susan. And just for everybody listening, the book that Susan mentioned from Jay Baer is now linked to an Amazon page in the chat function, so do check it out on there. And actually, Susan, I'd like to go to you next. So we have had another question come in from the audience, and thank you to everybody for continuing to send those in. Please do make sure you keep doing that. And this question comes from Tim Pritchard, and Tim is asking is pointing out that increasingly customers are providing unstructured feedback to brands. So beyond text, they're starting to use video and photos to express their delight or their frustration with a brand. How would you suggest that companies can make sense of this increasingly dirty data?
Dirty data. That makes me giggle. Yeah, so let's back it out and talk about first pictures and then video. With pictures, The cool thing is a lot of times we use a technology, we actually embed a technology into our product that looks at the picture and can decipher brands from the picture. So let's say I'm sitting there with my Nike shoes on and I got a big thumbs up and I post that picture on Facebook, but I don't reference Nike, I just say love my new tennies, right? That can be picked up proactively because you can search for pictures that have your brand and your logo in them. So that's one cool way. Of course, once that picture is there, tons of people will comment on it, and then you can pull those comments together. Another thing that you need the technology to do is to keep the picture and all related comments, or the entire conversation, whether it's picture or not, together so that you understand the context of each comment. So definitely look for technology that offers you that. Now when it comes to video, the cool thing about video is, yeah, it's it's even more dirty than a picture, right, as our person would say on the line. But I would say that the good thing is that there's also voice there a lot of times. And if you can use voice to text transcription that would share then what that person is saying and give you the exact, as if they wrote it, and give you the exact text and their sentiment, and give you the ability to drill into that detail. So that's another cool thing that you can do with videos. Again, it comes down to, and I know I'm so biased, so I apologize to everybody, but it comes down to having an amazing text analytics tool, one that works not just for your industry, but understands colloquialisms, understands related products, so that when I'm talking about my Tesla car and I reference an apple, I'm not saying I'm eating a red apple driving down the street. I'm talking about my cell phone and plugging my cell phone into the Tesla. One that understands related products, one that understands your industry, one that understands how people talk. What does an emoticon mean? Is that happy emoticon or a sad emoticon? So you've got to ensure that the technology supports all of these capabilities so you can truly drill into that data.
Okay, fantastic. And Jeff, do you have any feedback on this same point?
Yeah, so I just wanted to quickly say that I think that a lot of people are really interested in analytics and getting feedback that is easily interpreted and scaled. But I think that there's a really valuable piece to like the manual side of analytics. So a lot of tools that people use to manage their customer service on Twitter will have what's called tagging, and you can tag a conversation or a message with whatever sort of sentiment or whatever sort of feedback is there, and then you can sort of do some aggregation automatically through their reporting tools to see like how many pieces of feedback are we getting about this thing and what is the sentiment of those topics. So I would say don't be afraid to instruct your agents and the people who are actually helping to do really good manual tagging. If there's a photo or a video that they need to sort of discern with their brain with a human experience, you should have them do that because you can get really great analytics that way.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for that. Okay, so in our last few minutes, I'd like to move to the final sort of section of questions that we're going into. We've had several people ask us various questions around KPIs and metrics and measurement. So Victoria, I'd like to go to you first and ask what metrics matter the most. So what metrics change when you do real-time engagement well? How can you measure progress, and what sort of impact can doing this well have on the rest of the business?
Sure. So a lot of the things we look at today are going to be, response time. Obviously, that's the heart of what we're talking about. But we look to response time. We look to, the overall amount of volume that our teammates are getting through. We have a very manual, process in place for just basic quality reviews, for spot checking, for giving opportunities to improve. All of those kind of roll together to give us an overall sense of the health of our social media pages and how we're performing. I think, and anecdotally, we'll be able to say we're noticing more positive results. We're noticing more positive kudos and feedback coming in from our members when we're in a faster response time. the times that you fall a little bit further behind, you definitely see a slip. I think resolution time is a great thing to look at as well, or conversion rates. Taking a look at the sentiment prior to the sentiment after. There are some tools that actually track sentiment for you, and I think what Clarabridge offers with some of the text analytics can help you do that. So looking at conversion of sentiment post resolution and after resolution, I think those are all things that you can monitor to really keep an eye on how you're doing within your pages and whether or not your real-time engagement is actually supporting them.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. And Susan, are there particular metrics that you would recommend our audience focus on specifically?
Yeah, so in addition to response times, volumes, and quality reviews, I would say look at trends over time and understand how those particular metrics are trending. Look at the total cost of support. So that is what's going to help you make that business case and calculate some ROI. When you can calculate ROI, you're basically looking at what was the total cost of the solution, not just the software, but the implementation and the people that are using it versus whatever gains you think you can calculate from it. So we work with an airline out of the Middle East. They were able to calculate 1,899% return on investment just based on the fact that, again, the software and technology and the people training is a very small fraction of the potential that you can gain out of these solutions. So the other thing I would suggest is, as Jeff alluded to, keeping track of the entire the sentiment, but overall the overall topics that people are mentioning. Remember that this data is a gold mine. It is a gold mine not just for your customer support team, but for your marketing team, for your product development team, for your operations team. And if you can harvest this data in a useful way to say, hey, product team, there's a particular product feature that most of our customers are struggling with. They can put that on their roadmap to fix or adjust it in the future. Or if you can say, hey, marketing team, we released this new, this new capability or this new offering in our bank that when we describe it in this literature and online, customers don't understand it. They're struggling with it. Guess what? It's very easy for the marketing team to go fix that literature and fix that online message about it. So you can actually take this data and this gold mine of data and not just use it to close the loop with that one individual, but also use it to better your business, and we call that business optimization. So highly recommend that people are focused on not just the data and their core metrics around the call center, but also how they could improve their overall business over time.
Just to jump in really quickly on that, that's 100% agree. We actually have what we call our Insights program that's pretty robust that allows us to deliver those insights back to the business. And I think it's something that can really set your social customer care team apart from your other lines of business as well, because you're getting real-time feedback, you're getting feedback in public. It's the one-to-many type approach. And so if you can make those changes and have customers feel like they have an avenue to actually help drive change for your business as well, it's a great avenue for you to make sure that you prevent future customer issues or just find ways to better the experience overall. So 100% agree with Susan. It's a great avenue.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Victoria. And the last question that has come in from our audience that sort of touches on the same thing is around Net Promoter Score. So Jeff, I'd like to go to you. How does good real-time engagement impact on Net Promoter Score? Is that something you can speak to?
Yeah, so quickly to touch on the answers from the last question, I really like the way that Candace and Susan talked about those metrics that are, like response time and resolution time and those really tactical things that you can do to change your business. I think that NPS is one of those metrics that really matters as well. CSAT is another metric that people use, in place of NPS, but essentially what they're, trying to get at by asking these questions and by measuring this is, am I creating satisfactory experiences for my customer? And I think that that's a really important thing to be measuring as a KPI. Earlier this year, I think it was in March, we launched what we call customer feedback, which is a tool that lives in direct messages where you can survey your user after an interaction, and with the click of a button, they can give their answer, whether it's an NPS or a CSAT question. And we're seeing pretty incredible results from that. So it's a 60% response rate on those questions. And so it's, measuring the NPS or the CSAT of the experience that you're creating as a KPI that you're interested in. We've given that tool via API to some of our ecosystem partners so that they can, essentially send out those surveys automatically after an interaction and remove any bias that may come from having agents cherry pick who they get that sort of feedback from. So what we see, though, is that the faster that you can respond, the more that you can resolve, the higher the NPS and CSAT scores are. So being able to create a real-time experience creates a higher satisfactory experience for your customers.
Great stuff. Okay, thank you very much for that, Jeff. And I am afraid that that is all the time we have for today. So a huge thank you to Susan, to Jeff, and to Victoria for their time and for their insight. And a huge thank you to you, our listeners, for some absolutely fascinating questions as well. So before everybody leaves to get their first or indeed their last coffee of the day, depending on where you are, we will be sending out the recording of the webinar tomorrow. So no need to worry if you did miss any parts of the discussion, if you joined a little late. So thank you once again for joining us, and again a big thank you to our speakers and to our webinar supporter, Clarabridge, and I hope that everybody has a fantastic rest of the day. Thanks, everybody.